Forgiveness needs to happen on 3 levels. First, we forgive ourselves. Then we forgive other people. And then finally, we forgive circumstances. And I'm gonna dive into all of those a little bit more. But I want to tell you a story about my own experience with this. Years ago, let me see, it was, oh my gosh, it was in the 90s, I think. 80s or 90s. I was 7. No. Many of you know I'm also a musician, and I was on the road with a show, and I was playing keyboards in the orchestra pit, and I was unceremoniously terminated very shortly into the run of that show, and it was Les Misérables. So yes, I was quite the Les Misérables one. And I remember at the time, with my magical thinking, saying, well, I should not be fired. I should not be terminated. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I hate them. I hate them. And I went to the conductor. I said, I blame you. I blame you. You let this happen. This was wrong. This is wrong. The truth was, I did not prepare. I did not do the homework involved with it. I had a lot of magical thinking going, I'm on the road. I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to be doing the show, and it's going to be wonderful. Well, if you don't practice hours and hours and hours and freaking hours a day to go into a new experience, guess what? You're not going to make it. And so that experience happened, and it crushed me. It really did. And I spent literally years in resentment of that. And I also saw that my money was not, it would flow in drips and drabs. But there was a lot of debt, and it all seemed to have happened around this time. It started at that time. And so fast forward, as I began to study, and really actually study these principles, and I began to look at those questions that I always offer here. What is there for me to know? Who am I to be? What is there for me to do or to give? And I began to recognize my own role in this situation. And I took full responsibility for what it was that I had done and not done. And this situation, this anger, was like it was living rent-free in my head. And I had this whole image and this whole picture, this story. And I had to come to a place where I said, am I willing to change the story? Am I willing to tell a different story? How about just a true story, or one that's anchored in truth? And so I began to practice forgiveness. And what I'm truly, truly aware of is that when you and I are ready, the blessing will present itself. When you and I are ready, the opportunity to move forward will present itself. So as I said, this happened the 80s, 90s, I can't remember, but fast forward to 2019 and living in Oregon, and one of my girlfriends took me to see the show Hamilton. And so it's about 10 minutes before curtain, and I'm sitting up in the second balcony, nosebleed area, and I'm looking through the program, and I see that the conductor who fired me from Les Mis is playing in the orchestra. He's in the pit playing keyboard. And I thought, oh my God, this is my chance. And I almost leapt out of the balcony. My friends were like, what are you doing? And I ran down the stairs, and I leaned over the rail of the pit. And I said, Michael, I'm sorry. I hope that you will forgive me for what I did. I have forgiven you, and I know it was me. It was not you. And I'm so very sorry. I hope that you can be released from this, because you did not deserve what I said, and I really, really am grateful for the experience, because what it did was it taught me how to become one of the best musicians to do shows in all of Southern California. I became the first call keyboard player for all of the theaters because I worked my tail off after that. I realized there was work that I had not done. So that was my blessing. Like, if I don't show up. And so I said, I so totally apologize. I hope you will forgive me, because I fully forgive you. And we were both weeping, and now the lights are blinking because it's time to start the show. And we exchanged, virtual hugs and exchanged business cards, and went running back up. And my friends were in the nosebleed section. I said, what the heck? And I said, there was someone down there I had to forgive. I just had to do it because this is the opportunity. I don't know that I'll ever see him again in my life. Everything that began after that point, my life began to flow and expand in ways I can't even begin to imagine. Except that part of it is that my clarity about the path towards ministry and where I wanted to be and how I wanted to be was made clear. And it wasn't very long afterwards that I got the offer to come here. And this is my dream come true. You are my dream come true. But if I had not done the work and prepared for you, prepared for this, I would still be sitting in the darkness of some orchestra balcony at a show thinking, well, it should have been me. So are we willing? And I had to forgive myself, first of all. I had to forgive myself. And once I was able to do that and say, wow, I'm error thinking. I didn't do what I could have done. I didn't do what I should have done. But now I know better, and now I'm doing better. Okay, I'm okay now. And I am a different person because I have been transformed by that experience. Thank God for that experience. It made me a better musician. It made me a better human being. It was all of the blessings. You know, Emma Curtis Hopkins always says, or said, she's no longer on the planet, but that when we call forth the blessing in something, we say, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me, I demand to see the blessing in it now. Believe me, I said that for years before I actually began to uncover the blessings that were in that for me. But when we begin to do that, we have the willingness, then life starts to shift, because that which we are focused upon creates the vision in our mind. That which we are paying attention to, whether we know it or not, is going to create. So had I stayed in that place of resenting and making him wrong and me right, for God's sake, come on. If I had stayed there, none of this for me would be happening. None of it would have gone on. And my prosperity began to just go crazy. And it's not just about the money. It's not just about the $2 bills being thrown out here into the congregation. It was the open hands, the open fist. Because there are many of us who I think are almost like Simon Says, right? Well, she didn't say Simon Says, but just in case, I'm going to keep it closed. Oh no, what is she throwing at me? Money? Well, I'm going to keep my fist closed. Oh my God, I don't want any of that. Are you crazy? Who told you? Who told you to close your fists? Who told you to close your hearts and your minds? You know, we think it's protection. It's the vulnerability where we find our power. It's the vulnerability where Spirit has the room to come forth as that power, that presence, that magnificence. And you and I are all here as creations of the divine. As I said when we started, we are in the laboratory of the infinite. What then shall we create? So if all we're using is one little beaker of anger, there's not much to create. But in this laboratory, if we have this beaker of love, a beaker of forgiveness, a beaker over here of possibility, of hope, of the willingness to trust, and we begin to put them all, there's this alchemy that happens. Forgiveness is that thing that we do for ourselves because someone else doesn't even know that you're pissed off at them. And they probably don't care. I know there are people that don't like me, and I don't worry about it because I know who I am and I know what I do. And there are probably people who haven't forgiven me, and that's okay. I guess I'm living rent-free in their heads, which... You know, I don't even know that, but I am absolutely so fully anchored in the knowing that you and I are divine and that nothing and no one can take that away except, ta-da, you and me. Right?